Welcome to our continuing series of Virtual Voices, hosted by World Information Transfer and focusing on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Our speaker today is Vida Asiegbu, who is an investor in specializing in climate technology and sustainability, aiming to support the energy transition and mitigate climate change effects. She has over a decade of experience with early to late stage companies across various industries. Most recently, she was an investor at Energy Impact Partners, managing a 100+ million fund in climate technology and sustainability, and served on the board of directors for ChargerHelp and Audette. Vida also worked in investment banking at Evercore and Citigroup, focusing on merger and acquisitions and capital raising. She holds an MBA from the University of Virginia Darden School of Business and a BA in economics and business from New York University. Over to you, Ms. Diego.
Thank you so much, Doctor. And it's a pleasure to be speaking with this group, the group that is in person, and then also the group that will be watching online later. This is a great opportunity for me to just take a moment to have a moment of pause and reflection on what is going on in the climate tech industry. I thought that this would be a good time, with the summertime and it being so hot, to just take a step back and think about where we are and how we got here and what it is that we can do. So hopefully everyone should be able to see just my screen. Just confirming that. Can I get a thumbs up if you can see my screen?
I can see you very well.
Okay, fantastic. Good. Thank you. All right. So just to get started, I thought that it would be good for us to just go over what we're going to be discussing in this presentation. So I'd love to share a little bit about my background, let you know a little bit about how it is that I got to be in the tech and sustainability space. I'd like to do an overview of climate tech versus clean tech because these terms are used interchangeably, but they can mean different things, and they do represent a bit of a difference in the philosophy around how investors are thinking about both of them when it comes to the broader ecosystem, when it comes to saving our planet. I'd like to just take a bit of time to discuss climate themes, and then I'd like to end on reflections. But what I'd like to just encourage everyone to do is, if you have any questions throughout, please do not hesitate to, either raise your hand and ask questions. I do have a Menti, which is going to be capturing all of our all questions if you'd like to use that as a resource as well. That will be on the next page. But first, I just wanted to really just take a step back and reflect on where we are and how intertwined the sustainability goals that the UN has put out does intertwine with the energy transition at large, and how important it is when it comes to the things that we need to do as a global community in order to move forward and to make sure that we are having a positive impact on our planet. So if you take a step back and you think about some of the cross sections of the individual sustainability goals, that there are 7 that are going to be very well in alignment from my perspective. Climate action, an easy one. Life below water and on land, other adjacent areas that are going to be very important when it comes to the impact on our planet. Sustainable cities and communities, clean water and sanitation. These are all ways that we need to be thinking within the clean tech and climate tech context for improving our planet. But the context that may be overlooked at times is just good health and well-being, goal number 3. I think that it has been the reason why it has been harder for a lot of people to really get on board with understanding why it is such an importance to make sure that we are, paying attention and focusing on things to mitigate climate change, because it hasn't really affected us in our daily lives up until now. The thing is that now that we're talking about it, now that we're feeling the effects of it, we are in a danger zone. So even by 2020, we had made such a significant impact where we did rise by 1 degree Celsius in terms of the temperature change, which causes a whole host of different follow-on effects for our planet and for us. And so the harsh weather that you're seeing today, the windstorms, the harsh thunderstorms, El Nino migrating now to La Nina, these are all effects as a result of the man-made climate effects that we have had. And this is not something that should be politicized. It is something that is happening. It's happening to everyone around the world. And we do need to, as a global community, ensure that we are instituting change. So we can talk more about, some of the themes and some of the work that I do, but I do want to start off with some questions. So first and foremost, I do have if you scan the QR code, this QR code is going to open to a series of questions that we're going to run through before, we officially get started. So if everyone can take a snapshot of the QR code, or use this link that is here. And then I will navigate to test. Okay, so hopefully everyone should see a screen where the first question is, how much more heat retention do you think methane has versus carbon dioxide? So please feel free to use either your phone or to navigate to the Mentee poll online, and we can get started. And once we have enough people that are scoring, then we can unveil what the scores are.
Vida, all the questions as per our UN conferences have to be written down. They are received by our moderator, Susie Hallock, and she will ask the questions as they come in. So there is nothing that basically you can do except tell the people that are watching you to send questions to wit@worldinfo.org so they can be answered.
Okay, fantastic. And so, then I support that, and hopefully everyone got all of that detail for how to ask questions.
Okay. So you
Fantastic.
can just continue with your presentation and not worry about it. It is taken care of.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for that. Amazing. So do we have some suggestions? If anyone wants to come off of mute and detail whether or not they believe that it's 17 times, 44.6 times, 84 times when it comes to the amount of heat retention that methane has versus carbon dioxide.
Do you want to continue?
Sure. I can definitely continue. Well, the answer here is 84 times. When it comes to the heat retention, there are a lot of different gases that are in our atmosphere that are causing the greenhouse gas effects that you are feeling today. If you're in New York, you're feeling it very well today with, temperatures that are going to climb up to 90 degrees, above 90 degrees. But it's different gases, and methane, which is one of them, that has the highest of the greenhouse gas effect. So over a 20-year period, you would see that there is more heat retained by the methane that is in our atmosphere, which is an alarming amount. Another question that I had was whether or not what the biggest barriers are to adopting clean technologies. Um, when it comes to what it is that we can see that could be, that could be an issue, high costs, lack of awareness, technological limitations, policy regulation issues, and resistance to change can be, viewed as some of those issues. But I would say, in my personal opinion, that really it has to do with, a lack of education and understanding around what it is that is happening, in what it is that is happening, and ways that individuals can have an impact on the environment. I think that if people only knew how much of an impact that they had on the environment, that it would be something measurable, and that they would be able to take action as a result of that. And so, just a few tidbits there. Actually, when it comes to the average consumption of or emissions, carbon emissions that is emitted by each person on an annual basis in the US and Canada, it is 14 metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions. And what does that equate to? That's around maybe 6,300 bricks. That's the size. That's the size and the weight of it. And so we have a bit of work to do, because if we are supposed to achieve the net zero goals that we have by 2050, it means that we need to get to not 14, but down to 1 metric ton of emissions per year, which is about 440 bricks. So there's a lot of work that we can do. I do have to preface my discussion today by saying that we are not hopeless. We do have time. We're cutting it dangerously close, to be honest. But I would say that if we as a global community are able to make changes on an individual basis and to influence the systems that we are operating in, that being businesses, our communities, government, then we can make changes that are going to at least help us with mitigating the effects that already exist. And then we can start working to work backwards when it comes to the impact that we've had already. So just a little fun facts to get us started. But so I want to just take a step back and share a little bit about myself. Doctor, I really appreciate you giving me the introduction. But the story behind the story is that I wanted to make an impact in wherever it is that I was. And investing is where I knew that I would be able to do that, because investing at the early stage for new companies, products, and services is the way that you can influence things and influence the world. Your companies like Google, or even NVIDIA, are company examples of startups that started very small but had a big idea for impact in the global sphere. And so investing is the way that I knew that I would do that. And I was very fortunate to have great exposure to climate and sustainability technologies when I made my exit from investment banking into investing in 2019. And there, I can say that it was the Indie Bio demo day that I went to in San Francisco that was the eye opener for me, because by then, Climate 1.0, which was after the financial, the tech boom, was on its legs. It was done and over with. And so there was a nice resurgence of interest in climate related technologies that would help with sustainability that were coming to the forefront. And so that's something that was really important for me. And it really did help me think through what it is that are going to be the new technologies that are going to impact our world for tomorrow. Things that I saw: cowless cheese, dissolvable plastics that can be that are edible, sustainable dyes for even just doing gene washing, denim gene washing. I I just thought it was so very interesting, but it really did bring into very clear focus the importance that thinking about technologies in this sphere, how important it is for us for the future. As I mentioned, we have a bit of ways to go when it comes to our emissions, you know, per individual. And so I in 2020, I did get an opportunity. 2021, I got an opportunity to help with the energy transition in a real way with the work that I was doing at Energy Impact Partners. There, I was the capital deployer for one of our early stage funds, ensuring that we had more voices, more perspectives, and more contributors to the climate climate change fight. Um, I would say that it was something that was really important to me to make sure that there were other people that are diverse that were in this space and that were contributing. And it's something that I continue to do work on today, because at the end of all of this, climate change affects everyone. It's not just a certain group of people, it is everyone. If you've had a bead of sweat rolling down your head walking to and fro in any part of the world, you are affected by climate change, because it is something that does touch everyone, and everyone should be a contributor and should have to contribute to the solutions that we will have. And so, I briefly mentioned Climate 1.0. Climate 1.0 is really bordering on the theme of clean tech in general. And so when it comes to clean tech and what it was that clean tech was in the beginning, it was a movement that was focused more on the business models that were focused on performance and productivity and efficiency when it came to clean energy, clean air, clean water, waste recycling, waste reduction and recycling. I would say that the reason why the clean tech movement didn't get as much steam is because, unfortunately, there wasn't enough of the governmental political backing that was necessary and that should be necessary when it comes to goals that have to do with really everyday consumption for the global community. And so I would say that this, unfortunately, was the demise of this movement. And that happened after the tech boom. It was supposed to be that new wave of interest and investment that came after the dot-com bubble bursted. However, because of that lack of investment and lack of knowledge and understanding, it was too early. And so there was trepidation when it came to Climate 2.0. And bringing back these technologies and focus on these technologies, which is what we can now, more famously call climate tech and sustainability. But I would say that these terms are used interchangeably. However, when it comes to the climate tech, it is focused on, reducing the impacts of the drivers that are causing the greenhouse gas emissions that are happening and changing our planet. And so there are some technologies, as you can see in this diagram, that are going to be climate specific, like agricultural tech, which is directly focused on methane reduction, carbon capture that is focused on, capturing fugitive emissions that are in our, in our atmosphere, afforestation, versus climate tech, which is the clean water, recycling, and waste. But all of this and the cross section that it has within the built environment, transportation, supply chain, and clean energy are all things that we need to do in order to make sure that we are living up to the sustainability goals that we have and that the UN has put out. And so no matter where it is that you are, there are some differences when it comes to climate impact and what is going to have an effect on the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions versus clean tech. And I would say that focus on all of these things are very important, because when it comes to immediately reducing carbon emissions and adaptation to the environment that we live in today and other issues that are affecting the health and well-being of the general populace, these are all things that we do need to think about. This is the reason why, it is very weighty to me, and the reason why I've decided to stay in this, in this sector, because it touches everything. Climate touches everything. It touches the way that business being done. It touches um, it touches retail. It touches consumer action. And so the more that we can understand where those touch points are and how important it is, I think that we can all continue to get on board when it comes to what it is that we need to do in order to make improvements in our planet. So I'll take a pause there to see if there are any questions that are, bubbling up for anyone in the group. All right. So I guess everyone understands everything, which is great. Um, when it comes to climate themes, I would say that there are some things that can be um, that are measurable, and that, as an investor, that I wanted to make sure that I did share with this group. And the first is that climate tech is a fast growing sector, with climate equity transactions in the private markets jumping from 75 billion in 2019 to 196 billion and counting in 2020 and beyond. And so when it comes to the climate tech, which is going to be the umbrella term for the rest of this presentation, when it comes to climate technology, I would say that this is an area that is fast growing. There is more technology, and it's exciting for someone like me on the investment side to see, because we do need solutions, whether it be solutions within transportation, or within battery technology and storage of energy, or nuclear technology. Investment and different endeavors, ventures that are focused on those areas are absolutely necessary in order to make sure that we are on track and on pace for mitigation. The second theme that I wanted to point out is that climate investing has had a period of growth in capital formation over the past 4 years. And so there have been 333 new sustainability, ESG, and impacts funds that were launched between 2019 and 2020. And that number does continue to grow. That means that there is funding that is coming to this. So it's not just public funding that is coming from the government, such as with the infrastructure bill and all the dollars that were allocated there. This is going to have to be a public-private partnership when it comes to the work that needs to be done in our society. When it comes to investment, when you have that public and private partnership working hand in hand, and you have all of these pieces going in, at the same time, there is that cooperation does help to bring forth innovation, fund innovation, and keep things moving. So it's been really exciting for me to see that there are others that are in the climate tech space that are focusing their dollars on investing in the energy transition. Frankly, I have invested in some of those funds as well. Kapor Capital, which is another fund that has a pocket of capital for climate investments, and then Powerhouse Ventures is another early stage fund that has been doing amazing work in making sure that new technologies in the ecosystem are getting the capital that they need, the investment that they need, and the time in order to build and develop so that they can become companies for tomorrow's use to help with our climate change mitigation goals. The widespread adoption of AI is going to be my third point here. It's bringing forth, avenues for tackling climate change and mitigation and adaptation. There are companies, startups in particular, that are using AI in order to create data sets, and aggregate the insights from those data sets in order to make sure that they are um, using predictive modeling for for their businesses. Um, one such company would be, for example, ChargerHelp, that is going to continue to use the data set of information for the work that they're doing in order to create insights around EV infrastructure and chargers. What ChargerHelp does, for example, is they are doing the technical servicing of of EV chargers in the ecosystem across the country, and looking into other parts of the world. But what they do is they make sure that you have reliable EV chargers for your EV that you're pulling up to the station to fill. And so, um, as you can imagine, with the service element of their business, they've been able to aggregate data around what is going on with the stations, because there is an infrastructure issue and a reliability issue that exists. And companies like ChargerHelp are using AI in order to understand and predict where faults are going to happen in the ecosystem of chargers. And then finally, and this is a really big point here, and something that is, kind of creating an inflection point right now, that software platforms such as carbon credit and accounting that have long been staples of venture capital, they're not going to be the panacea for solving the climate challenges that exist today. Hardware, infrastructure are also elements that we do need to invest in. Now, from my perspective and from what it is that has been happening in the ecosystem, hardware has been difficult to invest in. Software is a very easy venture capital investment play, but we are going to need to invest in the next wave of technologies, products, and services that are that are going to be helping with the climate transition and helping with the climate challenges that we have. Um, Now we are in conversation, and there's a broader conversation in the investment community about how do we fund these hardware projects? How do we fund new stakes in the ground um, for the trend for the EV charging infrastructure? How do we fund new projects that help with standing up nuclear in one area or another? Or when it comes to new projects that are going to be helping with providing waste to heat energy. It is going to take capital. It is going to take patient capital, but the capital is, venture capital can be fairly expensive. And so I would say that the ecosystem is going to require additional entrants into this space. The government is continuing to do their work. That is going to be important, most especially as far as the public-private partnership is concerned. But the banking system is most likely going to need to get involved as well and figure out how they're going to do underwriting for these projects, because it's not easy to quantify when and where the returns in value are going to be on the hardware side. So with that being said, there is a needle that needs to be threaded when it comes to new technologies like direct air capture, and green hydrogen production, because these projects are expensive. Even battery technology, that is a very expensive endeavor. Manufacturing is incredibly expensive, and we do need battery technology in order to create the storage that is required in order to make sure that we are, you know, smoothing out our energy consumption in a day. Energy storage is going to be the way that we do that, but the widgets that we need to manufacture are going to take capital, and quite a bit of capital in order to make a reality. And so, you know, another one of the themes, which I briefly mentioned already, is just the funding that is flowing in to the ecosystem because of the Inflation Reduction Act and how that has helped to unlock capital for companies and for customers that are going to be utilizing climate technologies. And so there are different programs that exist. I've named a couple here. The Climate Resilience Accelerator Program is a great example of some of the programs that exist where federal dollars are being allocated and distributed to companies that are going to be doing work within the climate tech space. Equity funding, as I mentioned before, has continued to increase with venture capital funds that are in the space and that are continuing to raise additional funds. So not just Fund 1, but Fund 2, Fund 3, Fund 4, and other large banking large institutions, financial institutions, your BlackRocks, your Blackstones that are getting involved in climate. So it's really exciting to see how much energy that there is in this space. And with that being said, before you get to deploying the capital into these larger companies, you need to have the ecosystem that is going to help with developing and building up these new technologies and products and services. And that's your incubators and accelerators. And more have come up in the past few years in order to make sure that climate specific technologies are getting the time and attention that they need in order to grow, develop, and mature. Accelerators, for example, include LACY, that's the Los Angeles Clean Tech Accelerator, the Elemental Accelerator, just to name a couple.
I'm on a webinar. I will call you as soon as
Just to name a couple. Let's see. Alrighty. And so I think that we may have someone that's making a phone call. Okay. Okay. And then finally we have non-dilutive capital, and that will help with creating minimal dilution for these new investments. And so companies like HSBC, CIBC, they are providing capital at a lower rate than equity for some of these technologies that are at our later stage and that are profitable. So having those capital sources helps when it comes to just helping with dilution of the ownership of the founders that are running these businesses. And I would say that it helps with making sure that there is, as little expensive capital, or less expensive capital than would be necessary to further these technologies. So we're happy that there are these different vehicles for capital deployment in the ecosystem. So finally, what I want to share is just that when it comes to the added theme, when it comes to the lower middle income communities, there is an issue that exists. There are a number of issues that exist when it comes to these individuals and these communities of people participating in the energy transition. Unfortunately, because some of these technologies are expensive, it does create a barrier for access, because capital can be scarce for these lower middle income families. Insufficient tax burden is another one of the issues, unfamiliar unfamiliarity with clean energy products is also a key. Lack of trust, and distorted price signals. These are all things that are unfortunately keeping the broader community from participating in the climate transition or energy transition in order to help with climate change. And so these are things that we do need to, think more about when it comes to how we are thinking about our impact and how we impact others. Because to the extent that we're able to lobby for government dollars, funding, education for the broader community, the better shape that we're going to be in as a global community to make sure that everyone is on the same page. We need to have everyone going in the and facing the same direction when it comes to the climate change that is happening and ways that we're going to make a difference. Um, One of those programs includes Justice 40, which you may or may not be aware of, but it was um, established by the Biden administration in 2021. And it is a council that is related to environmental justice to make sure that everyone does have access to the tax benefits, the tools that they need, most especially if they're coming from disadvantaged communities. Um, when it comes to the energy burden of low and middle income households, it is estimated that 8.6% of the income of their household is consumed for energy, whereas whereas excuse me, it can be between um 8.6%, but the energy burden is much higher for low income families in some locations and can be as high as 30%. And so this mandate is going to be helpful and continues to be helpful for lower income communities. And so what we need to continue to focus on when it comes to making sure that we're all on the same page is clean transit, affordable and sustainable housing, training and workforce development, because the people that are going to be greatly impacted are those individuals that are in the workforce. So helping to ensure that they have the development, the training that they need is going to be important to make sure that we are transitioning communities of people from where we are today into the future where we have more climate technologies that are at play. This is also going to ensure that we're not leaving anyone behind. So what some companies have been focused on, ChargerHelp is one of them. The um, LA Clean Tech Incubator has been focused on bringing companies that are going to be thinking about workforce development, to make sure that no community is left behind. It is very important that we're thinking about what the impact is going to be on the workforce, because, say, for example, when you're talking about a vehicle going from a traditional internal combustion engine or ICE vehicle, that's your gas powered vehicle, to an electric vehicle, the skill set, there needs to be a transfer of the skill set in order for the individual that is working on an ICE vehicle to work on an electrical vehicle. And the sooner that we're able to get everyone on board, the sooner that we're going to have advocates in these communities who are thinking about the energy transition because it affects them and it is part of their livelihood. And we will ensure that we have people that are, working in the direction of making sure that they are participating in the climate transition, because they are, they are part of it. They are working in it. So there are different organizations that have been helpful with, training and education and making sure that even the job codes that are related to these different roles when it comes to energy transition jobs that are out there, making sure that those people are even getting a fairer wage. than would otherwise be possible in current day. So it's been really exciting to see all of that happening. So when it comes to the, you know, what our individual impact is, understanding where it is that you are as a consumer in this society and as a carbon emitter is going to be really important. Because when you know and when you can measure what it is that you are doing and how you're contributing, you'll be able to make those adjustments in your life and in your community to ensure that you're having an impact. And so things, things like flights, um, sustainable travel consumption, whether it be energy consumption, when and where energy consumption is happening, food waste, these are all ways that you'll be able to make an impact in your home, in your household. But then if you bring that, out more broadly, having an impact in your community, making sure that, as I mentioned here in number two, having, having the discourse with people in your community, with your friends, and getting together to make sure that you do have elected officials that are helping with sweeping change for the energy transition, the energy resources, and moving away from the fossil fuels that are contributing to the issues that we have today to more renewable sources. That is what is going to help make an impact. So you can have a micro impact on your own, but then you can have a macro impact. And then when it comes to finally the continued investments in technologies that are going to eliminate and mitigate carbon-based consumption, and then also bring back in renewable or bring in new renewable technologies in a safe way. That's where you can take action, and that's where you can take action utilizing these technologies, doing the research to understand where it is that you can have an impact will be very important, because the technologies are coming out, whether it be mill, which is a food waste recycling device that you can put in your home or in your office, or you know, or even just making sure that you are recycling and making sure that your building is doing the recycling that it needs, or even lobbying for advanced recycling in your neighborhood. These are all ways that you can have an impact, and there are technologies that can help you with that as well. The other thing is ensuring that you have an action plan and that you are encouraging others around you to have an action plan as well when it comes to where they're spending their time, where they're spending their dollars, and where they are looking to make changes in their habits. So I do have a link here to Clever Carbon's quiz, where it can tell you, just based off of different factors, what it is that your consumption is, your individual consumption is. I'm happy to share that in the chat so that you can take a look and see, and we can have a conversation about your thoughts around your consumption. But yeah, I think that even though we do have a lot of issues that are coming today with inclement weather, with the changes to communities because of climate impact, I would say that if we all band together and have an understanding that our individual actions in total can create some change, I think that we can continue to stay on track and make some changes in our global community. So I'll pause there for questions. I'd love to just take any questions. And I see that someone did come on screen.
Thank you very much. So we can get started with our Q&A. Very interesting and relevant topic. So what do you think are the greatest challenges for funds investing in climate technologies, and maybe potential solutions to help address those challenges?
And that's for funds, correct? So the greatest impact has been, I would say that it would have to be the fact that additional attention needs to be made, or additional work needs to be done in order to figure out how we fund hardware technology. I think that that's going to be, I think that that's going to be the next wave and the next frontier. Um, and so when it comes to the fact that we're moving away from software technology and investing in that, because, we have largely exhausted that, in my opinion, investing in hardware is going to be the next frontier, and the technologies that are going to be advancing, advancing the energy transition, whether it be, hydrogen production, whether it be the infrastructure that we need. So say, for example, EV infrastructure that we need to be online, to make sure that there is enough infrastructure available for those who are driving EVs. That's going to be the next wave. Investment in the infrastructure is a biggie. I would say that as far as technology, I would say financial technology is what is going to be important for that as well. Different mediums when it comes to first of kind or folk financing is going to be the technology that really does win the day there, because at this moment, individuals, organizations are still trying to figure out how it is that they are going to, invest in hardware, technological hardware in mass. And that is going to take some, as I mentioned before, some needle threading when it comes to where it is that we are, where it is that we are deploying our capital, what is going to give capital deployers comfort for deploying the capital. Because I know that everyone, a lot of investors, a lot of capital deployers have been standing on the sidelines, not sure how they're going to be able to make their money back after investing in hardware, and the returns are lower, and the model is going to be different. So financial technology and how to deploy capital to hardware is going to be the way that we can win and that we can continue with advancements in climate tech.
Thank you. And you mentioned public-private partnerships, the importance of that. Have you seen any successful private-public partnerships? And if so, could you provide some examples?
Absolutely. I would say that I would love to, I'd like to say that when it comes to that, ChargerHelp is one example. They have been very, very in tune with what is going on from a state and from a federal EV infrastructure perspective, and different mandates have come out as a result of the work that this company, for example, has done. So just to take a step back, ChargerHelp is a company, as I briefly mentioned before, they are a company that helps to get EV stations back on track. So in the country today, 30% of the infrastructure is down. So if you have an EV today and you're taking a trip, through the country, or, in your area, there is a 30% chance that the charger is not going to deploy a charge to your car, which is an incredibly insecure place to be. Most especially if you're used to having a fossil fuel driven car. And a company like ChargerHelp is making sure that those charging stations are back on track in 72 hours or less, versus in a matter of weeks or months, which has been the case with the infrastructure around the country. In California, they have instituted a reliability standard to make sure that 70% is not a thing, and that they get to 98, 97, 98, and even 100% of reliability for stations online and available for EV drivers. And so that I would say is a great example of that partnership where a company like ChargerHelp was helpful with providing information about what is going on in the field and, kind of sharing data with the government in order to help with making sure that there is, a mandate at the state level to ensure that there is, that there is uptime and reliability for customers that are in California. Um, I think that there there are other opportunities that exist. Block Power is another one of them. Block Power is a company that does work to help with building retrofits for the housing ecosystem. So for the built environment, there are things that need to happen, whether it be installing heat pumps um, in a building in order to make sure that it's a cleaner running building versus using fossil fuels to power and generate energy for the building. They are in partnership with different cities as well, and receiving capital and incentives from these cities to help the buildings and building owners in the territories where they have that partnership with getting funding so that they can begin making the changes that are necessary. So these are two examples. There are more when it comes to where there's, where opportunity has provided that intersection between the public and the private, because and it's necessary, but we're going to need more of these instances, for example.
Thank you. And you mentioned the shift toward hard climate tech solutions and
Yeah.
hardware as kind of an emerging trend in this space. Do you see other emerging trends in the upcoming 5 to 10 years, or do you think this is really the main area?
I would say that the movement to hardware is an umbrella. It's an umbrella term. I think that if we're talking about other technologies that fall within hardware, I think that more work is going to be done in shoring up other technologies. Nuclear is one of them that has been really, it's been on everyone's mind, and how we can responsibly deploy nuclear technology as part of, um, you know, carbon mitigation. Um, I think that the use of alternative fuels is going to be another one. But again, I group it under hardware because of the investment that is going to be required to, create the manufacturing and the capability, you know, alternative fuels, hydrogen, green hydrogen, for example, are all areas that are going to require investment. But I think that what is really exciting is that the world that we see today is going to have to change quite vastly when it comes to the types of technologies that we're using. So it's going to look different. I would say that the world is going to look different, which is going to be very exciting. Um, you're going to see more electrical vehicles on the road. You're going to see electrical vehicles and hybrids, depending on where, automotive manufacturers are going in terms of their comfort with the infrastructure. I would also say that, yeah, the way that each one of us is going to, interact with our home environment as well is also going to change. You are very well going to see electrical stoves and, monitoring. I know that there are some who are operating with a Nest in their home. That is going to, a Nest is a device that does help with turning the temperature at will, on a device, on like a mobile device or so. You're going to see that in order to help with consumption, that the utilities are going to, be in partnership with homeowners in order to at one time reduce the energy consumption of a community or of an area if there is a need or if there is overextension on the grid in terms of the power that's being drawn. So I would say that, beyond the hardware, the way that we're going to be interacting is going to look different. It's just a matter of society catching up to what is going to be necessary.
Makes sense. And how do you kind of see the whole ecosystem working together, like corporates and governments providing necessary investments to scale ups who are coming up with these innovative technologies, and then investment funds investing in these projects? Like, where do you see kind of like the important roles playing and how they work together to achieve sustainable development goals?
Absolutely. I would say that first and foremost, and I touched on this, but I would say that first and foremost, depoliticizing climate change is number one, because it has become something that is a red or blue issue, and it's not. It's an everyone issue. So I think that that's a starting point. And to the extent that politics and that that politics or manipulation is involved in that, it just needs to, and it just needs to stop. And there needs to be a collective, a collective. Do not go here. This is not the issue. Talk about anything else, but this should not be one of them, because we do need everyone's ideas on board in order to make sure that we are focusing on the right technologies, products and services, and getting investment there. So that's my first thing. I would then say that I think that, and this is what's also kind of coming down the pike, when it comes to the government, encouraging businesses to participate in the, in cleaner ways of doing business. That's what's also going to be very important, because the reality of free enterprise is that unless there is an impact, there tends to not be fast movement or fast enough movement. So say, for example, financial institutions are doing monitoring of climate impact for different businesses. And you will see in the future that some of the funding, some of the lending that is happening is going to have a climate impact that is infused in that, where a company may have to pay a higher interest rate if they have a bad climate rating, or a bad climate impact rating. That is what I think will be, disruptive in a good way for companies if there is a bit of that is coming from the government, where maybe it's a higher tax rate, depending on the type of climate action that is being taken by the company. And it's coming. I think that what has been happening now is different measurement technologies have been in the sphere. Now it's a matter of the government, lenders, financial institutions also getting behind to make sure that they are influencing companies to move in the right direction, because it is free enterprise that is, one of the largest consumers of, of energy and emitters of the carbon and other fugitive emissions that we do need to keep track of.
Thank you very much. It's such an interesting presentation. I'll now turn to Dr. Durbeck.
Thank you very, very much, Susie, for your moderating and presenting the questions. And also thank you very, very much, Ms. Asiegbu, for a very important and very relevant presentation that allows people to understand the importance of implementing various programs in order to allow for climate change not to mitigate our lives. So also for the information about the technologies to eliminate carbon based energy. Also, finally, thank you very much for your presentation, and we wish you the best of luck in all your future endeavors, and have a very good week. Bye-bye.